What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. Okay, so I've got an update on some of this Doge spending freezes stuff that's been going on. You know, all this chaos that's been going on because, you know, it's only actually been chaos because the corporate press is saying, oh, it's chaotic, it's crazy. But hang on just a second. You know, Doge comes in and starts finding a bunch of abusive spending programs, and they're like, hang on, I don't think the American taxpayer agreed to this. And then, you know, what does the corporate press do? Oh, they're causing chaos all over the world by freezing foreign aid, right? Like, and it's not humanitarian assistance, by the way. We've already proven this outright several times. Donald Trump did not freeze any humanitarian assistance, right? It's just foreign aid. And what do they call foreign aid?
$22 billion from HHS to provide free housing and cars for illegal aliens. $45 million for diversity, equity, and inclusion scholarships in Burma. $40 million to improve the social and economic inclusion of sedentary migrants. Nobody knows what that is.
I was just about to ask what that meant.
$8 million to promote LGBTQI+ in the African nation of Lesotho, which nobody has ever heard of. $60 million for indigenous peoples and Afro-Colombian empowerment in Central America. $60 million. $8 million for making mice transgender.
Those things, right? Those things. So a lot of litigation has been coming through, and we've been trying to keep up on this stuff, and some of it finally hit the Supreme Court. Check this out, y'all. Supreme Court reinstates order for the Trump administration to unfreeze foreign aid. Now, that's kind of shocking to me, but let's get into it and see what's going on here. A sharply divided Supreme Court on Wednesday reinstated a lower court order for the Trump administration to release frozen foreign aid, but it was not clear how quickly money would start flowing. By a 5-4 vote, the court rejected an emergency appeal from the Republican administration while also telling U.S. District Judge Amir Ali to clarify his earlier order that required the quick release of nearly $2 billion in aid for work that had already been done. So essentially what this is they canceled a bunch of contracts, right? And I'm assuming here most of those contracts hadn't been started yet, or they're not binding contracts. And this is essentially binding contracts that the work had already started being done, blah, 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 the aid or whatever it was started to be given out. People were doing the work overseas. So, you know, you kind of can't stop that kind of stuff. A contract is a contract. Contract has to be fulfilled. Otherwise, you're going to pay a lot of penalties, and the penalties would probably be in excess of what the contract was for at this point. So I guess the Supreme Court said, yeah, we can't do that. It's a binding contract. We got to go through with this. So they decided, yeah, let's go ahead and do it. But, you know, once again, it's these ridiculous programs that have us, you know, $37 trillion in debt at this point. But, you know, I can see where they're coming from on this, the Supreme Court. I can see it, you know. Hey, I'm totally fine with this. But it also proves a point that, you know, the Democrats, they're constantly yelling, oh, we have a crisis in the court. Oh, the Supreme Court. Oh, that's just Donald Trump's court. Blah, 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 blah. Well, hang on just a second. See, they always forget about orders like this. The Supreme Court is not that heavily biased. Like they're constantly trying to say, oh, we have a judiciary crisis in the United States. This proves otherwise, by the way. Let's keep going. Although the outcome is a short-term loss for President Donald Trump's administration, the nonprofit groups and businesses that sued are still waiting for the money they say they are owed. Organizations in the U.S. and around the world have cut services and laid off thousands of workers as a result. You know what I say to that? Cry a little bit more. The United States is not the handout capital of the world anymore. I'm sorry, we just can't be doing this. We've got way too much debt. We're spending way too much in a deficit. And we've got our own problems to fix that our own congressmen are unwilling to stand up and fight for. These people just capitulate and bend over for whatever the machine wants. And we don't like that, y'all. We don't like that. The globalists have been destroyed at this point. HIAS, one of the nonprofit groups in the case, said it was encouraged to see the Trump administration held accountable, but said it regretted the irreparable damage that the Trump administration has already inflicted on our staff, the people we serve, and the reputation of the United States as the leader and a reliable partner. A leader in what? Giving out free money? Yeah. Insanity, y'all. That's what I call it. Justice Samuel Alito led 4 conservative justices in dissent, saying Ali lacks the authority to order the payments. Alito wrote that he is stunned the court is rewarding an act of judicial hubris and imposes a $2 billion penalty on American taxpayers. Yep. I totally agree with that. But once again, I also understand that, a contract is a contract at this point. And if you're in the middle of a contract, it is what it is. You know what I'm saying? The court's action leaves in place Ali's temporary restraining order that had paused the spending freeze. Ali is holding a hearing Thursday to consider a more lasting pause. The majority noted that the administration had not challenged Ali's initial order, only the deadline, which in any event passed last week. The court told Ali to clarify what obligations the government must fulfill to ensure compliance with the temporary restraining order, with due regard for the feasibility of any compliance timelines, right? So that timeline that Ali gave was insane. I think it was like 2 weeks or something like that. And, the government doesn't work that fast, and we know that. And I'm assuming, the Supreme Court looked at that order and was like, well, hang on, we need some clarity on this. We don't understand your order here, my guy. Chief Justice John Roberts and Justice Amy Coney Barrett, 2 conservatives, joined the 3 liberal justices to form a majority. Justices Clarence Thomas, Neil Gorsuch, and Brett Kavanaugh joined Alito's dissent. The Trump administration has argued that the situation has changed because it has replaced a blanket spending freeze with individualized determinations that led to the cancellation of 5,800 U.S. Agency for International Development contracts and another 4,100 State Department grants totaling nearly $60 billion in aid, y'all. That is a lot of money this day and age, even still. It is nothing compared to our budget. As a matter of fact, like $7 trillion. But, that's a lot of money that we need to save. And thank goodness for Elon Musk, Doge, and Trump coming in, because think about this. Where would we be going if Kamala Harris would have won? Right? This would all be continuing. We'd be spending money into oblivion, trying to destroy this country. This is why I always say Joe Biden was trying to destroy this country. All these programs were just doubled, if not tripled, under the Biden administration, right? And it's insane. It's so much spending. It makes absolutely no sense. Like, Joe Biden doubled our deficit spending, y'all. Doubled the deficit spending, right? And it was an unthinkable $984 billion Donald Trump's last year in office, right? Which before that, it increased a lot because of COVID. That it was a major increase, as a matter of fact, because before that, I think it was like in the $700 billion range or something like that, maybe $800 billion, like upper 700, low 800, something like that. I don't remember exactly. But, Joe Biden comes in and immediately increase that by 50%, because fiscal year 2023 or 2022 was 1.5, 23 was 1.6, and then his last year in office was 1.8. It would have been $2.2 trillion. $2.2 trillion if Joe Biden's student loan forgiveness plan would have went through, right? If the Supreme Court saved us like $300 billion on that. That's an insane amount of money to pay off student loan debt. That's ridiculous, y'all. It really is. The federal government froze foreign aid after an executive order from Trump targeting what he called wasteful programs that do not correspond to his foreign policy goals. The lawsuit that followed claimed that the pause breaks federal law and has shut down funding for even the most urgent life-saving programs abroad. I'm sorry, Not true. That is a lie. These programs that he was shutting down were not life-saving. Right? These people, they make any sort of claim that they want. They don't care. They use qualifiers like most urgent, life-saving programs, right? Because, LGBTQ people need their plays going on in this country, and we need, gender studies programs over here and all this other nonsense going on. We don't need, this is not life-saving stuff here, but they can say that, and they can get away with saying that because, the LGBTQ plus community, they have a much higher rate of, I'm not even going to say it, I'm sure you guys know what it is, of offing themselves, I guess you could say. Turning the game off, put it that way. So they can get away with trying to say that, but it's a lie. It's just a blatant lie. It's a gross mischaracterization of what is actually going on. Ali ordered the funding temporarily restored on February 13th, but nearly 2 weeks later he found the government was giving no sign of complying and set a deadline to release payment for work already completed. Yeah, I don't care for that too much, to be honest with you, but in a situation like this, how does the government comply with that? That's a lot of money that they froze. Now they're having to immediately unfreeze it and send it back out when they don't want to. But I understand you must comply with the courts. Donald Trump said he would. But you got to give them a good amount of time to do so. All right? Just because we shut off your gender studies program over here doesn't mean it's not going to keep going once we turn that faucet, that money spigot back on. The administration appealed, calling Ali's order incredibly intrusive and profoundly erroneous, and protesting the timeline to release the money. Pete Morocco, the Trump political appointee overseeing the dismantling of USAID, detailed concerns he had about the Supreme Court ruling to lawmakers Wednesday during an already scheduled closed-door briefing to the House Foreign Affairs Committee. Committee Chairman Brian Mast, a Florida Republican, described the exchange to reporters afterwards. Mast and Democrats on the panel said that Morocco did not directly answer when asked by Democrats if he would obey the Supreme Court ruling on the funding freeze. Yeah. So what? You got to obey those. And just because he didn't answer doesn't mean that they're not going to do it. But, now that it's come from the Supreme Court, yeah, you kind of got to at this point because that's the highest court in the land. Now, I can see, an angle going in on, or the argument that, hang on, we're appealing these decisions. That's why we're not complying with that. And I totally get that. And I agree with that. If you're going to throw something on appeal, you're going to appeal that decision. I'm sorry. I'm not going to send out your money, U.S. taxpayer dollars, on some nonsense program until we get the last word from the Supreme Court. I'm sorry. These programs are such a waste. They really are. We don't need them. This is part of the problem. It's not part of the solution. And we need to stop this, right? Democrats in this country, as a matter of fact, politicians in general, they have a spending problem because they're not spending their own money. They're spending your money. They don't care. Oh, we're funding these programs to help you, but they really don't help us at all, especially some foreign aid package, right? None of that helps us at all, right? And we have our own problems, and all of it is done in a deficit. We're having to borrow money to do this. Do you guys understand how insane that is? To borrow money to give to somebody else for nonsense programs, and the courts are stopping it. It is ridiculous. If that doesn't scream activist judges, I don't know what does. Now this, there's many other cases the Supreme Court is going to be looking at, and I can almost guarantee you that they're going to agree with the Trump administration on most of these. This one I get, because it was contracts that were already underway. They were kind of in the middle of these or whatever. So I kind of get that, right? But, any newer contract, gone, done, just gone. Get it out of here because, I'm just sick and tired of hearing about all this wasteful spending. It's nonsense. It's ridiculous. And I don't know where people get off, like these politicians get off, trying to prop up all these programs and saying, oh, well, we need to do all this. We don't want to cut spending, do we? Yes, we do. Right? And I've always said this, if you break it down to the average everyday American, and say, look, we need to do this, this, we're spending this much in a deficit, they'd probably be appalled at how much money we're spending. We're borrowing money to spend on nonsense, y'all. Nonsense. Right? Like all that Ukraine aid, borrowed money. All of it. Every single penny is borrowed. And all the spending, like there's so much of it. $1.8 trillion or $1.7 trillion that we spend that we don't have as of last year. That was last year's budget deficits. It's just nuts, y'all. And they think that we can just continue to do this indefinitely. These people are insane, y'all. But I'm rambling at this point, so I want y'all to let me know what y'all think about all this down in the comment section. It blows my mind every time. I'm kind of disappointed in the Supreme Court a little bit, but like I said, it is what it is. Ain't nothing I can do about it. I'm just a glass guy. I install glass for a living, right? And I yell at a camera for fun. So what do I know? Y'all let me know what y'all think. That's all I got on this one. I want to thank everybody for watching. And y'all try to have a good day. Stay legitical. Peace. Don't forget to smash that like button.